Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Amy.
Our project is called Mind, Body, and Soul, the Nature of Well-Being, and this podcast is just one small piece of the overall project. We are making a documentary that follows our hike on the Continental Divide Trail that will explore how spending time in nature affects a person's mental, physical, and spiritual well-being.
We are guinea pigs in a sense because we will be documenting our own experiences and recording changes that we find. Along the way, we are interviewing people about their experiences in nature to see how they have been affected.
Much of the benefits that come from being in nature are subjective, and therefore hard to measure in a quantifiable way. That's why we have turned to recording stories as a way to distribute this knowledge. Since the beginning of human culture, we have compressed valuable information into stories, and that's how we have shared wisdom throughout the generations.
We hope that the stories we gathered during this project will help spread some of the wisdom that can be found in the wilderness.
Episode 11.
Part 2 of 2. An interview with MJ Eberhart about his reflections found from walking across America multiple times. If you haven't listened to Part 1, you'll want to pause and go back. You don't want to miss it.
Is nature for everyone? Can you go through life without experiencing nature? We make great efforts in our big cities to set aside 2 acres somewhere where we can have some trees and some plants and some things that we would say are natural. With the light ricocheting and bouncing off of our 200-story building over here. That is not nature. I believe we all seek that we'd like to take, and this is describing it in a different way, that path, we'd like to take that path, not a physical path that we would say, here's the sides of it and there's the path. But I think in our lives we all seek the path of exploring and being part of or immersing ourselves in nature. I think it's don't you think it's a natural instinct? We've got this thing burning, this fire that we've got burning in our gut. Do you know what that is? But it's there. It's our desire and our hope and our dream just to be free, to have a free life, to go where we want, do what we want, think what we want, experience what we want, enjoy what we want, find satisfaction in all the things that we want, and a million other things that come together that creates that ember and that fire that's burning down in our gut. And I don't see how in the world you're going to isolate nature away from that. You can't. So I think it's instinctive in all of us. It's an instinctive desire. Have you ever heard the term bosom of nature? The bosom of nature?
I think so.
Okay. The bosom of nature, that's it. That's God. That's that place that we can be completely free and of pain and strife and fear and want and all the other things that we really don't want to have to deal with in life. If we could just go there, we came from the womb, and if you think about that, if you could go back and we had the ability to remember that, that would probably be one of the most comforting and one of the most rewarding times in our life is the time we spend in the womb. And you've read about stories about how wonderful the experience must have been in the womb. Well, there's the womb of nature, and it's called the womb of nature because of that corollary that I'm trying to make between where you and I were in our mother's belly and where we are now in our real life, if we could return to that. So if you're not familiar with the womb of nature, that's what that's about. It's about returning to that total freedom and an environment where there's no want or need, where everything is perfect. Perfect.
I think the way that I think about that is that humans came from nature, and only recently have we kind of disconnected ourselves from that. So if we are able to get back into nature, it kind of feels like we're returning to our birthplace or to our home.
You got kids in the inner city that don't even know what dirt is. All they've got is concrete. And they may have a playground, but they got ground up rubber there around the swings and things. You don't even know, go through their whole life and never even get their feet dirty in real dirt or mud or anything. It's a sad deal.
So what does that do to a person to not have that connection with nature?
Yeah. See, I didn't realize until recently, well, a few years ago at least, what a wonderful childhood I had, especially now that I talk to younger people like you and others that are saddened and feel like they've been shortchanged in their lives. When I tell them of the childhood I had, that I'd get up at first light with Mom and she'd fix a bowl of cereal or fry a couple eggs for me or whatever, and I'd say, Mom, I'm going to Jimmy's today and we're just going to go play today. And Mom wouldn't say a word. I'd go to Jimmy's. I'd be gone all day. She'd know that I'd be back at supper, okay? She knew I was going to come back. Kids can't even be out of the sight of their parents for 10 seconds anymore, or out of the sight of someone responsible for them in one way or another, that their parents consider they're going to be safe. I was gone all day from daylight to dark in my childhood, and my mother had the least concern about my safety and my well-being. It was the last thing in her mind. What a beautiful childhood that I had, the freedom that I had, and the joys that I had. I wasn't in, some jungle where somebody's going to beat me up if I walk around the corner. It's just frightening now. I can't even comprehend. And yeah, so when you say people are separated from nature, I was immersed in nature as a child. And I've gone back to it now.
So there's a kind of long gap in your life where you were working, doing a career that you were kind of not in nature.
Sure.
How did that change you, do you think?
I don't think it meant that there wasn't a longing at that time, but get your list out and let me look at it. You got a list of priorities. It may not be written down on a pad or anything, but you have a list of priorities, okay? These are things that you want to do in your life, that you want to accomplish. Yeah, okay, but just actually having a list. I just don't know. To me, my priorities are certainly different than what yours are and what you seek in life. But there was a time in my life when the important things with my family, providing security for my wife and my children, being successful, making money, being on the board of directors of this company, or the chairman or the president of the chamber, or one of these other things were important in my life at that time. And the least important thing then, or probably, again, that I didn't long for it, but my desire to go seek and be part of nature was the last thing that was on that list of priorities. So I don't know where you got it on your list of priorities, but
it's right about at the top.
And that's a blessing to you. That is if you can find some solace in that and some satisfaction and maybe some degree of feeling of accomplishment, and I think you deserve that.
Yeah, I realized recently in the past year or so that a lot of that has to do with luck. I mean, I had a good childhood. Nobody really screwed me up along the way too badly. And I also had some good role models, and I had some good influences in my life that kind of pushed me in that direction of doing my first through hike. And just coincidence, a lot of coincidence led me down this path. And then at some point I don't know, wise enough or smart enough to understand that this is something valuable to kind of chase, even though it wasn't making me money and I didn't see how I could make a career in it. Yeah. I sort of understood that that was more important. What did you do for a career? What was your career?
I'm a retired optometrist, eye doctor. I'm an outdoors person. You've been to the doctor's office. You're stuck in a little cubicle with no windows. And that was my life for 30 years. Yeah,
So
it was a satisfying and enjoyable career, but yeah, it's a whole different deal.
how has your idea of success changed since you started hiking?
You've heard this old saying, I'm sure. Everyone's heard it. The most important things in life aren't things. So, yeah, and that's part of the problem, I guess, with our consumer-oriented society that we have is the more things we have, the more successful we are. But that's not the case at all. At least that's my opinion. Every year, I had the successful life. I had the successful career. I had the $500,000 house down the quarter-mile driveway through the live oak trees on the lake. I've had the cars. I've had the motor homes. I've had the boats. I've owned the real estate. I've been there. I've done that. The old expression, I got that T-shirt. Okay. I tell my friends now, Alex, that every year I got less and less. Talking about physical things now. Every year I have less and less, and every year I'm a happier man. I can back my pickup truck up to that little old rundown cabin with no windows and doors in it down there that I live in, and you give me 20 minutes. Let's see, could you do this? Give me 20 minutes, I can back my pickup truck up to that old cabin down there, and I can load every physical possession I have in my life into the back of that truck, and I can go down this road and I'll be gone. So I tell my friends, every year I have less and less, and every year I'm a happier man. And I would conclude that by telling you I just can't wait till I don't have anything. Well, that's the way we came, and that's the way we're going to go. Yeah, it's not, things aren't the important. Most important things in life are not things. I'm going to value my friendship no longer than I've known you. It's going to be important to me. I sincerely mean that. Has nothing to do with what you own or what you have. It's what we have collectively between us with the time we spent, because we spent that. That time's gone and it'll never be back again. So what have we purchased with that time? Hey? Yeah.
Something that I was talking about with some of the other people that I've interviewed is that nature is kind of like the great leveler. It brings everybody down to the same level. That like socioeconomic status and who your friends are. And
Well, putting a pack on and going on the trail sure does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great leveler, isn't it? Yeah, the guy next to you, what he did or what he does or whatever his life was has nothing to do with what it takes to be happy and successful on the trail. Is a whole nother deal.
You've talked about God a few times. What is God to you? How would you define God?
Well, I believe in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That story that was brought to us in all the books of the Bible, I believe all of that. In the old King James Version that I have, when I joined the church and when I became a member of the church and that Bible was given to me, the words of Jesus are in red. They're printed in red. Have you seen one of those old Bibles, or do you have one? Maybe your mother has one, or she has one that belonged to your grandparents. That would be me. Someone of that age would have one of the old King James versions of the Bible, and the whole New Testament in there, and any time Jesus spoke, that's all in red for a reason, because it's supposed to stand out, and we're supposed to learn from that and take special meaning in what he said when he was here as a physical living being. So I believe in his birth, and I believe in his death and in his resurrection. I honestly believe that in my heart. It's not something that we have to discuss or argue about or equivocate or try to give justification for. And where is that? It's in God is in all of us, and not necessarily in one form or one degree to the other, comparatively speaking, because we think of things occupying space as volume. This has nothing to do with space and volume or time in that matter. But within all of us, we have within us, in our soul, God is there. And as best I can, and with the faith that I've mustered and the understanding that I have in life, have come to trust in God. So I've accepted God, I've accepted Christ in my life, and it's not something that I'm going to sit here and spout off about or get up and stand on a box and preach about. It's just who I am and what I am now, and I'm completely at peace with that.
Okay, so how do you see God in nature? Like, I think you said earlier that you can see God in nature. Like, what does that look like? I know it's not something that you physically see. Is it something that you feel?
Well, you walk out this door and you go out into the woods here, you're going to see all kind of disharmony. You're going to see trees that have been blown down. You're going to see bits and pieces of other things that were part of life with nature that's destroyed or dead or whatever. And so you can see that disharmony maybe, but in all of that, there's an order because of life that springs up from the soil and grows and matures, and most of this in a fairly slow and long, enduring fashion, which again brings me a lot of satisfaction in trying to seek patience in my life, to see how nature patiently deals with things from century to century, eons to eons, I guess. Again, I don't think with our physical senses that we can gain any real understanding or in any way truly comprehend what we're trying to do with our physical senses. But again, within us, in our heart and in our mind, there's that, there's another medium there, and we talked about this a little while ago, where you can feel this urging, this tugging that we have that's constantly there, maybe subconsciously and at times consciously, that we are seeking out what this is, and yet never really being satisfied in our physical mind that we can truly understand or see or feel or smell or hear what this is. It's another realm, and the way I've dealt with that is I just accept it. And so when I look at nature, when I see the trees, when I see what seems to be disharmony and disorder, there is an order to it. There's an incredible order to it. The ability of nature to continue to reproduce itself as far as what we see physically out there, the trees and the animals and the plants and the spheres spinning around above our heads. Boy, oh boy, I wish you could explain that to me. So we have to have faith. It takes, I don't know, maybe for you not as much faith as it took for me. Maybe it takes an incredible additional volume of or amount of faith for you than it does for me. But I've been able to satisfy, and the word's not curiosity, but just, again, the instinctive desire to find some meaning and some reason and some order to all of this. And I can see the disharmony and I can see the order in nature. And not that these are antagonistic, but they combine in a way that when I see, like Benton Mackay said, to see what we see, what we look upon, to really see what we see, that I'm content with that. And I've found joy and satisfaction and peace in what nature presents to me. God hides things by placing them all around us. And that's not our physical eye seeing that. That's not our physical ears or hearing that, or tasting it or smelling that. Again, it's another realm that's within us, and God is within us, and it's there for us to accept or reject. And we can reject it, or we can gain through faith peace with that. And at 82 years, I've managed to arrive at a point in my life where I'm at peace with the innate and the instinctive and the inborn manifestation of what God's created within me.
Do you think, does somebody have to be a Christian, or do they have to be a part of some organized religion to understand that, to figure out what God is or what the soul is? Or can it happen kind of naturally just through exploration or something like that?
A lot of these mediums, a lot of the structured forms of religion are certainly man-created. And I think we needed to do that for our own satisfaction and to arrive at some point in our physical lives where that's acceptable. I question that as far as Christianity is concerned, because I'm a Christian. And that doesn't mean that there aren't other forms of understanding or appreciating or being connected with God. And you said here a minute ago you're going to be interviewing some other people that may have a different organized religion than what I profess to myself. Is that wrong or is that right? And should I be the judge of that? I'm certainly not going to want to go there. I'm just telling you my feelings and my faith and how I've arrived at what I believe to be in my own life. And whether that's right or wrong is not for you to judge or for me to judge, or your other religious beliefs of others that they have to judge. Good Lord, we know that the wars and the famine and the suffering and the terrible history that's behind us pretty much goes back to some belief or disbelief in one form or another, or some religion, unfortunately. Did I avoid that good enough?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough thing to answer, because there kind of is no right answer, especially if you do believe in some organized religion, because I would assume that you would think that that's kind of like Christianity must be the best way to think about the soul or God. The way that I think about organized religion, I think, is that it's kind of like man's attempt at putting this stuff into words, because it's very hard to put this stuff into words. And that's kind of the thing that I've been running into with all these interviews. As soon as we get to this soul topic, everybody feels like they kind of have an understanding of what it is, but when they try and talk about it, the words just like don't really make sense to them. They get all jumbled and kind of, I don't know, just get like aimless with the way they talk about it, because it's a very hard thing to explain and to put into words.
Well, we know, or we feel that we know, that there's a natural and a supernatural. And what's the connection between natural and supernatural? And I've just found through the teachings of the Bible and through my Christian upbringing that chasm has been crossed, that breach that's there has been bridged through Christ. That's the way I look at it, that the natural and the supernatural have been connected, where he was here as a physical person and then became a supernatural or non-physical person, and was able to return to us and try to explain a little bit of that to us, that we might begin at some point in our life to get some meaning from, has been very satisfying and has been very comforting in my life to just accept that. Those teachings are very deep and very meaningful, by people, again, in our natural realm that we would consider to be knowledgeable and to have maybe a little more insight and a little better understanding of some of this than we do. And I place a lot of my trust in that. We have to. That's kind of where I've come from, and this is how I've arrived at where I'm at now in my life. Can't you tell that I'm probably a person at peace? That it's not something I'm trying to put on or bring up or offer to you that's anything other than true and real.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to take away from it, is that it doesn't really matter what you think or what you're telling people. What matters is the effect that it has on your life. And it definitely works for some people, and some people don't want to take part in it. So
that's a personal thing for each one of us. Mm-hmm. Why would I want to dispute that with you? Any more than I'd accept you want to dispute anything that you would agree or disagree with my feelings and thoughts. Very personal thing, and that's where these wars come from. Good Lord. Good Lord.
You didn't avoid it that time. When you look at American society in general, what do you think some common problems are that people have? It's a very broad question.
Excuse me?
When you look at American society in general, what are some common problems that a lot of people deal with?
I don't know, there's a number of words to describe it, I guess. We used to trust in God. Now it seems like God has been shunted aside, and what we really need to do now is just trust in government. And so the instinct coming from that level is that we dissociate ourselves from God and rely more simply on the government. I'm certainly not a proponent of that, as you might well surmise from what we've discussed. So I think our society has drifted away from way, way far away from what I knew life to be when I was a child. The people that my family, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the people that I was raised around and with, were very self-reliant, very proud in a way that we wouldn't maybe apply the meaning to the word being proud today, but do you understand what I'm saying? These were people that were very moral, very deeply grounded in the understanding of the difference between right and wrong, and were proud of being a person of that character. Pride defining that, so to speak. And I think we've drifted, and to a great extent anymore, driven away from what we should be as a proud person. Again, I've just tried to define what I mean by pride. Being driven away from being a proud person and being self-reliant, being faithful to our convictions and our thoughts and what we know instinctively is a difference between right and wrong. There's no black and white anymore. There's no up or down. There's no right or wrong. There's always whatever that is in the middle is what's good. I can't accept that compromise. I can't accept that compromise, and if I'm being naive, I guess, to try to feel that there's a possibility that we're going to be able to pull back away from where we are and where we're going, I doubt it. To be honest with you, I think that during my lifetime, I was alive or born shortly after Kitty Hawk, when the Wright brothers lifted off from the ground and were free of gravity. From that time to where we are now, all the things that have occurred and developed and changed in my lifespan, I've lived through that, and I think during that time has existed the greatest period of time in everyone wants to call our form of government a democracy, but we're not a democracy. We are a republic, and I doubt if 1 out of 10 people could ever even try to define to you what a republic is. But we've gone away from being a republic where we are independent, self-reliant, trusting, faithful, truthful, handshake sort of agreement people. We've gone away from all of that to a place now that I fear is not the right place to be going. So I think I've been blessed to have lived through the greatest part of one of the greatest nations that ever existed on the face of the earth, and I think we're headed away from where that was.
It does look that way.
And if that gives you a little bit of a clue into my politics, I'm more not in the truest form of what anyone would try to describe or define to you what the meaning of being conservative is today. But to me, it gets back to the self-reliant, moral, dependable, proud person. And again, please, I've described to you and tried to define to you what I mean by the term being proud. I think that's gone. I think for all practical purposes, that's gone. When we can look to the government for our needs and not look to God for our needs, I think that's the wrong path to be on.
So I think I've arrived at a similar conclusion, but I've kind of think about it in different terms. It seems to me like people used to, when we lived in nature, more often than not, it seems like people had this higher belief system which was rooted in God or something that was like bigger than humans. We had this thing that we had to be accountable for. And then once we started getting disconnected from nature and more people live in cities now, it seems like we worship human created things. We don't hold things that are bigger than us anymore.
I've read some of that already, just briefly in some of your writings, and I agree totally with you on that.
Yeah, and it's
but we're from a different age. You know, your life and my life are totally different in time, totally different experiences that we've had. And I think, really, if we were going to sit down and hammer it out, we'd have an awful lot of things we could find in common and agree on.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely. Do you have any health problems that hiking has helped you overcome? Just like physical problems with your body?
I've been a physical person pretty much all my life. When I was a kid, I ran all day. School was always out the last Friday before Memorial Day. And my shoes came off and they never went back on until the day after Labor Day, which was the first day of school. So I was very active in my childhood. I ran and played and jumped and climbed the trees and did all those things, and physically was a very healthy person. And I continued that with some lapses pretty much up through my early adult life. And then further on into my adult life, I got involved again in running. I was running 50 miles a week just because I wanted to stay in condition. I was a lifeguard. I spent a lot of time at the beach. So I wanted to be in good physical condition. And then with my practice and my other responsibilities, was unable to maybe mix in as much of the physical activities that I would have enjoyed doing. But again, the first opportunity I had when I put my pack on, I was right back into it big time again, in spades as far as the hiking and the demands placed on you physically, which I don't need to even begin to try to define to you because you thoroughly and totally understand what that is. But yes, I think the fact that I've lived a physical life and been active in my life, and more so recently in the last 20 years, I've outlived everyone in my immediate family, my parents, my grandparents. Age-wise, I've outlived all of those in terms of the number of years. I had a great uncle that lived to be in his 90s, but otherwise I've outlived everyone age-wise in my family, and I attribute that, and to answer your question, I attribute that to a great extent to the fact that I've been very active and very physical the last 20 years of my life. And whether I can, after a lapse of the last 3 years of not doing much of anything, if I can get back into that again now this spring and put a pack on and go again, it's going to be an incredible blessing in my life. But if I can accomplish that, and if I can return to that and be successful, it'll be because it's been built on my previous activities of a very physical lifestyle.
So would you say that your physical lifestyle has prevented any chronic health problems from even happening in the first place?
Haven't prevented it, any of the problems. We're born with certain, we have genes. These come to us, and this is what we deal with in our life. It's from our parents, our grandparents, and on down. The heart disease, the hypertension, the diabetes, the mental incapacities that some of us have to suffer. These are things we inherit, and whether we want to accept them or not, of all the things we can control as far as what our health and our physical well-being might be on any given day, out of those 9 or 10 things we do have physical control over, and we can make right or wrong decisions about. But what we inherit through our genes, as far as the tendency to be obese, or the tendency to be hypertensive, or the tendency to have heart disease, or other conditions are dealt to us, and we have to live with that. And I've got those the same as you do, and everyone else does. But of those 10 things, or the 1 or 2 that we have no control over, all the others that I have had control over, I've dealt with pretty much in a positive way in my life. And I'm here now, sitting and talking to you and shooting my mouth off about it, because I've been able to be active, be healthy, live a lifestyle with less strain and with less mental anguish, and with less stress is the word I guess I'm looking for. And I've gravitated in that direction in my life to deal with those things in that way. And I've been successful. I wouldn't be sitting here at age 82 if I hadn't been. I've got limitations that came to me through birth that I'm living with now and have had to live with. I've got some problems with my blood pressure. You're not going to live to be 82 and not have prostate trouble. I mean, these are things that are just, I've had cataract surgery on both my eyes 5 years ago and lens implants, and I've got 20/20 vision today. So you deal with the magnification and the amplification and the complications of all of these things as you age, and I think I've handled it and managed it pretty damn well.
A lot better than most 82-year-olds.
Yeah, that's maybe not, but whether I've done as well as Graybeard, or as well as Billy Goat, or some of these other people, well, by God, I take pride in this. I really do. It's an accomplishment in my life that it wasn't something I set out on day before yesterday. I mean, this has been my lifestyle for years and years and years. And I've been successful at it. Whatever. That's what the kids say now, whatever.
Well, we got through the general questions, and then I've got a few that are kind of more directed for you.
No is the answer to the first one.
I just skipped the first one.
Skip over that one then, okay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of picking and choosing here.
Sure.
Well, what motivates you to keep going at this point? I mean, it must be like hard and painful to kind of get back out on the trail.
Most answers to most questions, if they are accurate and truthful and meaningful and get to the crux of it, are usually very simple explanations. And so the answer to your question is just one word. Just one word. Could you venture to guess what that word would be?
I would say something along the lines of health.
that certainly plays a part in it, but that's not the overriding thing that drives me and wants me to keep going and to put me back on the trail and to find satisfaction in my life. That's the health is part of that, yes, and it plays in that in a big way, but that's not the word. The word is passion. Passion. And that can be all-encompassing if you want to look at it, just purely across the spectrum in the realm of life, if we just are passionate about living. The guy works for 50 years, he retires, he gets the watch of the little plaque to hang on the wall. He goes and sits in his rocking chair, and 2 months later, he's dead. He just was never passionate in life about anything. And if you can maintain, or really you can create, and it's not a matter of kidding or fooling yourself about it, but you can actually bring into your life these kind of feelings where you're passionate about, maybe not just living, but within the categories of all the things that combine and come together to create what we call living, to be passionate about something. You enjoy your photography and you seek out opportunities where you can really make that shine. And one of the ways you do that is your hike. So there's another reinforcing element in it that you would say, well, this is part of my passion. This is what drives me. This is what keeps me going. This is the thing that makes me vital. This is why I'm vital. This is why I'm active. This is why I'm alive. This is why I'm enthusiastic. This is why I'm energetic. This is why I have a positive attitude. This is why I have a great outlook on life. You got to be passionate. I think I'm fairly passionate. In a very narrow spectrum, it's hiking. I enjoy backpacking, being out with nature. Just a passion for life, for living. How many people you know in their 80s that give a damn about much anything anymore? It's just sad. It's a sad situation. And it's not necessarily that they've given up, it's just that their narrow spectrum of what life is anymore has shrunk around them, where they sit in a rocking chair and watch the stupid television. Did it break? I hope not.
Okay. It just tipped over.
Huh?
It just tipped over.
I hope it didn't break something.
There's nothing too important in there still.
Just remember that one word. That's the key to the whole thing. Did you see that in Graybeard? Mm-hmm. And who else have you interviewed anywhere near our age? I would defy you to tell me that, well, that guy didn't give a damn about much anything. I mean, that's not who we are, okay? That's not the kind of people we are. We're very passionate people. And it has nothing to do with the enamor of what love is. It has to do with the overarching definition of what passion is.
Yeah, I suppose I should have known the answer because I think that's what I have for this stuff. And
well, whether you realize it or not, that's your secret there. And as soon as you start, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to move on from where this is not near as important and as rewarding and as meaningful in my life, because you're going to have interest in other passions and other things you want to do. And that's one way you grow and develop and mature, is to have all these other things in your life that you're passionate about. And whether this continues to be one of them or not, it's not that it's immaterial, but it's the important thing is that you maintain a love and a desire, and you seek all the greatest that you're capable of seeking in your lifetime on any given day, in any given moment, in any given experience. If you have a passion for all of that, you're going to live a long time, son.
I think I see this stuff as like filmmaking career, that's like my vehicle for having experiences and meeting people like you, and because that's what I really want out of life is to just to pack as much into this life as I can. And I think that doing this stuff is gonna kind of allow me to do a lot of that. That's the goal, at least.
So what's the secret to longevity?
Is it the same thing? I would say passion. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that I knew, but I didn't consciously understand it, so I'll have to think about that a little bit.
Well, good.
Yeah. Um, would you say you have much of a life outside of hiking or nature or anything? I think did you mention your wife and kids earlier? How does all that kind of play into this?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, yes. Outside of hiking or backpacking, that's a big part of who I am, and where I'm going, and that's one of the major links and one of the crutches and support and anchors in what I would consider as passion in my life. But one of the other things that's such an important factor to me now, and more every day, and you experience it here, just the short time you've been here, is just the satisfaction and the enjoyment I take out of being a good influence in other people's lives. These people that came here today sought me out because they've heard about me as a person, and maybe not that they were doubtful or questioned what they were told, but wanted to seek that out for themselves and see, is this really true? Is this guy really who my friends are telling me he is? And when they come and spend time with me and they leave with a smile on their face and having known they spent some time with somebody that perhaps has had a positive influence on their life, that is so incredibly rewarding to me. I mentioned a little while ago how I was accepted into this community and how I've become such close friends with so many people around. And in my life now, that is so fulfilling. And to have the friends I have and the people that care for me sincerely and truthfully in a loving way, care for me as a person. I could have rejected them. I could have shunted them off. I could have maybe never ever met them or ever made any attempt to become a friend with these people. So to whatever extent that my part I've played in being friends with these people has gotten me in that direction, I'm very happy and pleased with that. And I take great satisfaction in that. The fact that I've been able to influence people and have a positive influence on people's lives, that the guy stuck behind the desk at age 35 with all the mortgages and the car payments and all the debts and everything he's having to deal with in his life, that he can see that here's a guy at age 82 that's still really going and cranking and having fun and enjoying life, is vital and is healthy and has a great outlook. And I can look up to this guy and, by God, maybe there's something down the road for me too. That sort of a satisfaction in my life has been so incredibly important. And each day, as the days pass, that becomes more and more a real important thing in who I am as a person. Whether I've created that or whether the good Lord's just instilled that in me and has created in me that sort of a personality and that sort of a person, then I've been blessed with that. But I've certainly nurtured that and encouraged that in my life, to be a good person, to stop and listen, to hear what other people say, to be compassionate with them about what their shortcomings and what their pains and what the limitations are in their life, to sincerely care about that. And that's something that you can work at. It's not something that you're going to just pretend to do. It's like being a good athlete. You practice at it. And you wouldn't be a good athlete if you didn't practice, but you are, in fact, a good athlete, okay? And I think I've worked and practiced enormously with my effort in just being a good, caring and loving person. And I think I manifest that where people can see that now. So I'm a good athlete because I've practiced a lot to be a good athlete. So I'm a good person because I've sincerely worked very hard at being a good person. So it's sincere. It's not a show. It's not a facade that I stick up here in front of you to look at. It's real. And that has been such an incredible, satisfying experience in my life, to be where I am today and who I am today. I'm very, very, very at peace with that.
Has it ever felt like a burden to try and be positive in other people's lives? And you have people coming in all day. They're always asking you to do stuff.
I feel it, again, we can get into this way, way deep in the weeds. This is something now that I think the good Lord has placed on me. Burden's not the right word. Entrusted me with what I do and who I am and how I am and how that manifests in other people's lives. I've been entrusted with that responsibility. I haven't been burdened with that. I've been entrusted with it. And again, here, it has to do with your faith. It's the old saying, there's two sides to every coin. And the side I'm on, I think, is generated through my faith and through what I know is good in life. And I've tried to bring that to the surface within me and to radiate out through my countenance to you, so you can see that who I am and what I am is truthful and sincere. And so when people come here and I interact with them or talk with them, I'm able to do that now naturally. Just like when the batter steps up there after practicing for 10 years swinging the bat, he's going to hit the ball, okay? He's just going to do it. It's a natural thing. And it's been a journey. And a lot of it's been rocky, been wet and cold and uphill. I need to tell you about that. But the sun's out at the top and the view's incredible.
I love those nature metaphors. I asked that last question more for myself than for the movie, because I felt some of that. The Hey Duke movie was kind of my first project that got some recognition, and a lot of people reached out to me after seeing that movie. And I'm kind of an introverted person. I don't actually get a lot of energy from talking to people. It's like kind of draining sometimes. So it was feeling like a burden sometimes to respond to all these people, but I didn't quite think about it the way you do, like where I felt like I was entrusted to it, but I like that idea. And I sort of treated it that way. I still tried to make an effort to actually have a little conversation with all these people and kind of figure out what their story is and where they're coming from. And it has been rewarding. It's definitely kind of enhanced my perspective and the way that I think about things, just because have seen a little piece of all these people's lives, I guess.
Well, then you certainly understand what we just talked about then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think you're a outgoing person, somebody who gets energized by social interactions. Do you know that, like, the difference between introvert and extrovert?
You asking me as a person, myself?
Yeah.
I've been an extrovert all my life. I hope I've been able to overcome it to the point where you have to be told and wouldn't believe it when you're told. But I was a Class A personality. You know what that means. Good Lord, I hope I'm not anything near a Class A personality anymore. I want to be easygoing, laid back, patient, understanding, forgiving, non-judgmental, comfortable in my person, not assertive, but strong and meaningful when I greet you and interact with you. Certainly not arrogant, which we see manifested in great volumes in our society today. But I was a type A personality, and I certainly am not anymore. At least I hope you'll agree that you sure don't look like you're a type A personality anymore. I hope that answers it, maybe touches on what you're asking me.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that that's changed.
That was an effort. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. Because I think I'm more the opposite way, and I'm trying to learn to be a little bit more, I don't know if assertive is the right word, but outgoing, and to reach out to people and to make connections and stuff like that, because it doesn't really come naturally to me. And I've been making an effort to do that, and it's had positive effects.
The realization that so humbled me, and probably has had more influence than anything else in the last 20 years that I've put a backpack on. Tell me if you haven't experienced this, and I'm sure you have. The relationship or the interaction that you have from one person to another, you to me or me to you, or whatever coincidental situation you may have on the street, or where you might meet or interact with another person at any given time. Have you noticed that there's a difference between the way people interact with you, converse with you, spend time with you? There's a difference than all of that and the way it shapes up when you have a backpack on. When you have a backpack on, your relationship with other people changes. And to me, it's been for the better. I can be walking down the street and you're going to go by me and you may just look at the wall, or you may look at me and nod. But if I'm coming down the street and you're coming at me and I got my sticks and my backpack on, that interaction is going to be different. And I'm not always sure that I can adequately describe or try to come up with a definition of what that difference is, but there's a difference there. And to me, it always seems like it's a positive difference. Have you experienced that at all? When you deal with people that your interaction is different if you have a backpack on than if you try to remember back to a similar situation where you just met somebody?
Mm-hmm. I certainly have more interactions when I have a backpack on, and they're never bad. So I guess that is an increased positive interactions.
Something opens up there. Something's going on there. I'm not asking you to try to define or describe it to me, but you do appreciate it, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what really hit me and came home to me about that is, and this is biblical again. The thing about it's more the giving and the receiving aspect in our lives, it's better to give than to receive. What's that? I'm looking for a word there. It's more something to give than it is to receive. So we all want to give. That's the fun in life, is to be giving. And the revelation that came to me and what I finally understood is that if you're going to be giving, and we all want to give, somebody's got to be on the receiving end. Somebody's got to be there to accept the gift or to receive the gift. And I'm convinced, thoroughly convinced, that in my life now, more than ever, and it's going to continue, I guess, I've been placed here in front of you and everyone else that has this desire to give. It's more precious to give than it is to receive. That somebody's got to be on the receiving end. Somebody's got to be there. And the more gracious you are, and the more you realize, and the more you accept the fact that you're a receptacle for the good that comes out of all of us through our joy in giving. What a revelation that was to me, because there's no way in this world that I can ever repay the goodness and all the great things that other people have done for me. And that's their giving to me, and they got satisfaction and joy out of doing that. And so I was there as a receptacle on the receiving end. There's that phenomenon out there that you're familiar with and I'm familiar with, and if you go on to the divide trail where you're going into villages or past places where people see you with a backpack on, you're going to be the recipient of from trail angels, and these are things that are going to be offered to you because you have a backpack on. And I just learned to accept that and to be thankful that I can bring some joy and some happiness into other people's lives because they feel good about giving. So there's something behind this trail magic thing. When you put the pack on, you're on the receiving end now automatically, okay? Because the guy come up to you and say, "Here, buddy, take this $5." And you say, "Well, I don't need your damn money. Stick it back in your pocket," okay? That wouldn't have happened if you hadn't had your backpack on to start with. And whether you're a bum or he thinks you're a bum or he doesn't think you're a bum has nothing to do with it. It's just that interaction that occurs spontaneously at the time. And you can reject it like you did to start with, or you can finally start to realize there's something going on here that's bigger than me and that guy and what just happened and him wanting to be good and to give me something. And if you deprive the person of that, then, that's not good. If you read this second book especially, I struggled with that big time. I had a poor couple driving an old beat-up vehicle with 2 kids. The guy gave me a $100 bill. He gave me a $100 bill. What are you going to do? I tried shoving it back. I tried rejecting it. I went through all of that pain and agony of being on the receiving end of something where you don't understand what's going on. But I accept that now, and I was told by friends that I've explained this to later that you're a jerk. You fooled that poor family. You didn't need their money. They needed that, not you. It was close to Christmas time, for God's sakes. And I had a hell of a time dealing with that. But now I understand it, and the good that those people got out of greeting me and meeting me and befriending me and giving to me was a real joy in their life. Had nothing to do with a $100 bill. That was just the transfer of the energy that goes through that sort of an experience.
Yeah, that guy knew exactly what he was doing.
So, yeah. Huh?
That's just a good story.
And it's not a cop-out that I've finally decided that, well, I'll just deal with it because I think I'm here for that purpose. I think it's truthful. I think it's real that I'm a person that's going to be on the receiving end of things, whether I want to be or not. And the goodness comes to me here every day. I get food brought to me. I haven't been grocery shopping in 2 weeks. The folks bring me food up here constantly. They come up and they want to help me or do this. Can I help you? Call me if you need anything. It's just incredible. And I'm not taking advantage of these people. I'm not. But you can say, well, you're just taking advantage of these people. Yeah. So I guess you can tell I might still be struggling with it a little bit, but not really anymore. I've just accepted it, that I'm here for the good of whatever comes out of people, because there's good in all of us. And if I can be the receptacle that brings that out and manifests that little bit of good that's in you, then I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, I was actually wondering how often you come down from here as I was driving the road up. That's a big trip.
Not often. I'm at such peace up here, and I just enjoy sitting in front of this fire and the silence that's here pretty much of the time now.
Okay. Do you have any other stories like that from the trail that were really powerful and kind of changed something about you?
It's in both of these books in spades.
I'm sure it would be hard to just recall something on the spot.
Excuse me?
I'm sure it's hard to just recall something on the spot.
I just encourage you to read one or the other or both of them. It's not a daily occurrence, but there's so many instances in there that I could bring up and discuss with you, any one of which would probably impress you to one degree or another. Just got to read about it. I'd be glad to gift you this book if you'd like. I've just got a new shipment of these in. That book I'm out of totally now. I've got another shipment coming in next week, and if you'd rather wait and have me send you one of those, I'd be glad to. That's the one I was telling you about, talking about the experience that I had in there with the giving and receiving. Man, I struggled with that for a long time. But yeah, the book's full of those kind of personal interactions with other people.
Okay.
More so in this one because I've opened myself up more to being friendly and being open and being sincere and honest with people. Folks can see that. They can see that in a person almost immediately. And it's not necessarily first impressions, because sometimes those are really screwy. But it's something that's there, that's kind of an instinctive response that people have to you. If you're an outgoing, loving, caring person, they can see that. And I've become more of that kind of a person with time, so it manifests a lot more in that book than it did in this one. I mean, it's in this book, but it's manifested to a greater extent, certainly in that book.
Do you find that writing about this stuff helps you understand it?
Well, this is 20 years ago.
Okay.
And we'll just trade books, okay? Were you giving me this or just showing me this?
Yeah, you can keep that.
Okay, well, I'll swap you. Which one do you want? This one I can give you right now. That one, which I say I've told you, probably goes into the weeds a whole lot deeper on some of the subjects we've been talking about here this evening. Touches on them in one way or another and goes into them to greater detail in one way or another, but there's more of that in that book than there is in this one.
Okay. I'll probably wait to take that one then. I don't think I'll be able to get to it until after the hike anyway.
Well, you just give me your mailing address then, because this one's not for sale. This is just this is all dog-eared. It's been laying around here. But when I get a shipment of those in, just when you sign our guest book there on that page, just give me your mailing address.
Okay.
And I'll see that you get a signed copy of that book. And
All right.
that'll answer a lot of your questions that you've already asked.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure in more detail. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Anything that you feel like we didn't cover correctly or anything like that?
I marvel at the fact that it took me 60 years to try to get into understanding a little bit about what more about what life is truly about. And I think you're in your 30s now?
28.
Well, he's whiz. Yeah, I think you got a head start on all of where I've been and what I've discussed with you tonight. 30 years in advance of when it finally dawned on me, so that's just really impressive, son.
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of it's just coincidence, and somehow I had the foresight to recognize that I could take this path. And I'm definitely grateful that I have. It's been paying off. For 4 or 5 years, I was really worried that I was like wasting all my time and not going to be able to make a living, and I'll just have to like start over. But it's starting to pay off in the past couple of years now.
If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe.